if one says that it's perhaps possible that a pregnancy a few days after the missed period could possibly absorb. It's not known. However, it's clear that in the late pregnancies, such as what we heard, 16 to 18 weeks, where the baby, the fetus is already moving, and that's unheard of, and that's virtually impossible.
Are there enough safeguards in place, Dr. Falk, to protect other women out there from what has happened to people like Debbie?
I think there are safeguards, and I think it depends in large part on the patient, on the consumer. It was mentioned that we're self-regulated. That always sounds very ominous, that nobody's watching over us. The fact of the matter is most people who practice fertility or reproductive medicine are obstetrician gynecologists. We have a board for obstetrics and gynecology requiring a residency training. It should be noted parenthetically that Dr. Jacobson never took any residency at all. He was unqualified to be a fertility expert. He was not a gynecologist. In addition to our boards for obstetrics and gynecology, we have a subspecialty board requiring 2 or 3 further years of training, requiring a written exam and an oral exam for subspecialty training in reproductive endocrinology and infertility. There are some 20 reproductive endocrinologists board certified in the Washington area, and to go to someone, therefore, who doesn't even have a basic residency training in obstetrics and gynecology, he clearly is not a fertility expert.
But Ms. Andrews, let me bring you in here, because Debbie said that to her, this was a man who was renowned, an expert in his field with a reputation that was terrific. And of course, people as they go to doctors don't always realize what their entire educational background is. Do you think that there's enough regulation?
I think there's a lot of consumer fraud in this area of donor insemination. I think one of the big problems, and it occurs even with people who have specialties and who have passed board certification, is that there's inadequate screening. Some couples go for donor insemination, and instead of getting a child, the woman ends up with venereal disease. Researchers from Centers for Disease Control have published a medical article saying that there have been 10 different types of venereal disease that have been passed on through donor sperm. In addition, some couples have given birth to children with genetic defects that were passed on from the donor. And so there's a real question of adequate screening. There's also a question of the extent of sperm use. Even though there are guidelines, self-regulations limiting the number of children a donor might have, a lot of the sperm banks don't comply with that, or individual practitioners. Physicians have already stopped 2 marriages they knew to be between children of the same donor. Self-regulation is not sufficient. In New York, when they started regulating in 1989, 6 sperm banks voluntarily closed down because they couldn't meet the state regulations, which were no more stringent than the self-regulations. In addition, New York had to close down several sperm banks that were using fresh sperm only, which cannot be adequately tested for the AIDS virus. And so I think it's rife with the potential for abuse. Many of these patients are like desperate cancer patients searching for a cure, will try anything to have a baby. We need to step in and see what actually goes on behind the closed doors of these clinics.
And in the meantime, what can couples out there do to try to insure themselves against falling prey to this?
I think some of the issues is if the physician tells you that he's using donor sperm, find out what sperm bank he's using and call them to see if they actually supply that doctor. Ask what type of screening is done for infectious disease and genetic diseases. Ask how many children the donor is allowed to have. Call the American Association of Tissue Banks and find out whether they have done any sort of licensing of that particular bank. Find out if the director is a member of the American Fertility Society. There are things that can be done, but and hopefully that means that only a few people could get by with shoddy practices.
All right, Laurie Andrews, thank you very much, and Dr. Richard Falk, thank you both for joining us this morning. We'll be back.
Get ready for Held over Saturday, 9 a.m. till 10 p.m.
Your chance to buy like an employee at Smith's Home Furnishings.
Smith's lowest prices are employee prices.
And that's what you'll find Saturday.
Employee prices on furniture, appliances, mattresses, computers, audio, and electronics.
And even with employee prices, you can still buy with long-term deferred financing.
So plan to be at Smith's Saturday between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Because Saturday, you can buy like an employee at Smith's Home Furnishings.